Right then, so first of all, you've got Hasbiroid, Engineering the Future. This is like considered the strongest like core deck. Their identity is still considered one of the best. Their ice is, a lot of their ice is very, very, very powerful, but the runner can use clicks to get through, so it can cripple you if you don't have enough time to get through it, or it can be absolutely harmless and you can grab the agenda that's waiting on the other side. They've got some really good money cards, like their Adonis campaign, which gives you money every turn. They've got a good agenda, which can flip the game around on its head. And they've got a couple of traps, and then they have a way of playing the game that the other factions can't really do, which is biotic labour, which is where you actually gain more time on a turn. So you can score an agenda by having it in your hand. You can play biotic labour and gain so much time, as long as you've got the money, that you can play accelerated base, play their agenda, triple advance it, and score it straight away. So they are like almost undisputedly the strongest core faction, and their cards are often splashed into other things. But they're all about either playing a game really, really fast, or building up huge ice fortresses that just cost the runner unbelievable amounts of time and resources to get through. And often, if you play against them, you have to run early, and even when you run, you never know when that hellish piece of ice is going to hit you. Right, after them, you've kind of got a very, very different faction, Jinteki. Jinteki are all about traps and tricks. They're the only faction that deals net damage, which is a way of taking down... You can kill the runner using net damage, and that's a very legitimate way to play them. They haven't got terribly strong ice, but they've got ice that does different things. A lot of it does net damage. Chum makes their ice stronger. Wall of Thorns is a huge piece of ice that only stops the run, but it does net damage, but it's excessively expensive. They have an amazing agenda, but it's a 4 to advance, which is quite difficult, but that's balanced out by their trap card, Project Junebug, which will do net damage again. They have one of the best cards in the game, Snare, which keeps your R&D in your hand safe. They've got Precognition, so you can control what's going to come out of your stack. Neural Katana, which is one of the best surprise pieces of ice because it does net damage. I really, really like Jinteki, but they must have other cards in their decks to stand a chance because their ice is just way too weak. Jinteki, you can lose so miserably with Jinteki in the core deck because their agendas are just too big and flabby. They can't be scored quickly like Hasbiroid, and they're not as good at just keeping people out. You're playing a shell game if you're playing Jinteki, which is really hard in Netrunner in the core deck, because if you advance a trap and they don't go for it, well, that is a turn, time, and credits just completely wasted. Whereas in the expansions, there are cards that can reuse those sort of resources, and they've got way more sophisticated traps. So they do struggle in the core game. NBN are a very different faction. They're all about traces, which means tagging up the runner, which in the core game, without the faction we're getting onto later, just doesn't really do enough. You can get rid of some resources, but which are like the way that the runner does certain things, but it's just not really strong enough. I mean, almost all of their ice is to do with giving the runner tags, which unless you build your whole deck around it, just isn't strong enough. They have got amazing agendas that are really, really quick to score. They're the fastest side in the game, fastest faction, I would say, because they've got cards that let them draw additional cards. They've got really fast to advance agendas. They've got an upgrade, which means their agendas are even quicker to score, which is a ridiculously powerful card. And they do have arguably the best ice in the core game, which is Tollbooth, which is an absolute beast. But they're a really lightweight faction that needs, but you sneak in the occasional heavy hitter from HB or Wayland, and it can really spice them up. But that's really them mechanically. And then Wayland are they're meant to be the money deck, but they're not really. Their identity is just weaker than Hasbiroid. There is almost no way around it. In the expansion, their identity can be made much stronger, but it plays off transaction cards, which In the core game, there's only 6 of, so their ability only gives you 6 extra credits, whereas Hasbiroids will probably give you 1 extra credit every turn. But Wayland either play the big keep you out game with huge ice, such as Hadrian's Wall and Archer, which is still considered one of the most dangerous pieces of ice in the game, or they can play a small ice game with their little tiny ice walls and their shadows to generate money and put on tags, because they are arguably, along with NBN, the best at the tag and bag game, which is simply tag the runner, hit him with 2 Scorched Earths, and you've killed him. Their agendas are actually really, really quick to score, but they tend to be double-edged swords, where you'll get money and an agenda point, but you'll give out bad publicity, which gives the runner more money. They do have a lot of money, and they've got some good tricks, but they can be a bit one-dimensional if you're playing this Scorched Earth game. But if you splash into if you mix NBN and Wayland together, you tend to get the best of both worlds. Fluff-wise, Hasbiroid are all about building cyborgs. Jinteki are all about clones and like a more Japanese sort of feel to them. NBN are the news corporation, so they're not quite as brutal as the other corporations. And Wayland are the stereotypical big bad corporate America, where the means always justify the end. The end always justifies the means, and those are the 4 factions.